Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Gruniblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to talk about 8 players that have lots of potential, but tons of risk as well. Let's get it. Welcome on in, everyone. This is an episode that we put out every year, getting into some high risk but high reward players. I say we dive in with number one. It's going to be Mikko Rantanen for me here. I have him projected for 33 goals, 85 points. Definitely a lot of people saying that's on the low side, and I understand why. Rantanen has put together some tremendous seasons that we've seen over the last number of years in Colorado. But it's a different situation that he's in. Colorado was literal perfection for Mikko Rantanen. He got an unbelievable amount of ice time, and that is the number one thing. He got over 22 minutes average time on ice in each of the last 3 seasons in Colorado. 22-13 in 22-23, 22-54 in 23-24, and then 22-29 in Colorado last year before being dealt. In Dallas in the regular season, he was at 19 minutes, 7 seconds average time on ice. New coach, I think he gets a little bit more. I have him at 20 minutes average time on ice projected for this year. But it's hard to overstate how good that situation was for Mikko Rantanen in Colorado. And I don't think it's crazy to say that he could take a step back in terms of just his rate stats, but also in terms of his time on ice is almost guaranteed at this point. There's also other risks here. Dallas could split the power play as they've been wont to do in previous seasons. All of that combines to make Mikko Rantanen a pretty tough click in the first round and even into the early second round for me. Much more interested in him once we get into the mid to late second. Elias Pettersson is going to be number 2. Have him projected for 31 goals, 74 points. Pettersson is actually a pretty underrated hits and blocks producer. I have him projected for 107 hits and 97 blocks, which is pretty insane for a forward. Gives him a lot of floor there. The big problem with Pettersson, the wingers here are rough. Hopefully Jake DeBrusk takes another step. Hopefully, Connor Garland can be okay. They have some other options. Obviously, Brock Besser being the one that people know the most, but none of them are elite wingers, that's for sure. The team really needs him to be that dude, and we've seen him be that dude in the past, but it's pretty hard to get the taste of last season out of our mouths. I do think he's going to be better. The question is how much better. That being said, the price on him might be okay. I'm seeing him go a little bit more in like the 6th, 7th round of some drafts that I've been in so far. If he's in that range, then, the floor is there with the hits and blocks and the peripheral categories, and maybe he can get there for you. So Pettersson is not one that I hate the price on currently, but you have to admit it is a risky pick. Roman Josi, have to talk about Josi with what's going on there. I'm projected for 15 goals, 66 points. That's obviously assuming full health for the season. There have been some signs of decline in the advanced stats the last few years. His shot rates have dropped off a little bit, and the efficiency has not climbed to match it. There are also team level concerns in Nashville. Andrew Brunette could be the very first coach fired this year. That wouldn't shock anyone, I don't think. And what if they bring in some defense first coach in his stead and they just kind of put the clamps on the offense and Josi is asked to play a little bit different of a role than he has in years past? I think that's possible. Then, of course, the big talking point with Josi is going to be the POTS diagnosis. It just means that the range of outcomes here is super high. I don't think, if anyone is telling you they know exactly how this is going to work out for Roman Josi, then they're lying to you, unless you manage to get a hold of his doctor and somehow the doctor breaches medical practice and tells you all about it. So unless you've got that level of inside information on Josi, you just have to admit he is a pretty risky click. 3rd round, I've seen him go in some drafts. That makes me feel a little bit iffy. Again, floor early, right? Roman Josi does not represent floor. A lot of the time, I'm going to go with a safer option like Victor Hedman if I want a defenseman, and just probably going to shy away from Josi a little bit at that kind of price. Fourth player here, Zach Hyman. Projection for me is 33 goals and 66 points, which is pretty solid stuff. If you just look across the last number of years in Edmonton for Zach Hyman, last year does look like a little bit of an outlier. He obviously didn't have a great year last year. Neither did Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You can argue even neither did Connor McDavid. And so if you want to look back at that and say, it's just an outlier, they'll be better this year, I can understand that, but you have to admit he's getting old. He's 33 years old. He has a history of injury, some bad knee stuff. Obviously, breaks his wrist, I believe it was, in the playoffs. He's not getting any faster. At some point, he's not going to be able to keep up with McDavid anymore, and he could lose a lot of value if he doesn't have that even strength role attached to McDavid at the hip all year long. Generally, I don't think the ADP here has been too bad. In APL mocks, he's going at the end of the 7th, but risky click nonetheless, as you'll hear me say about every single one of these players. At the midpoint of this video here, I want to talk for a second about everything going on at Apples and Ginos. We've got so much going on. This long weekend has been absolutely insane. Skater projections are out, my projections, Blake's projections, those projections averaged together, and also my goalie rankings and tiers are all in one sheet for you. applesandginos.com/skater-projections. If you want to go check that out, free download. We're not charging anything for it. We want this information in people's hands so they can win some fantasy drafts this year. The APL, applesandginos.com/APL, if you want to learn what that's all about. That's the Apples and Ginos Patron League. We have filled a bunch of leagues. We've put people into divisions, but there is still a chance for you to get into the APL if you haven't done so already. You just have to be a $2 per month tier level patron or above for the duration of the year, and you can join the APL. If we don't get another 12 managers, we will just have a waiting list going, and I'm sure some people will drop out over the course of the season, but basically the sooner you get in there, the more likely you are to get into a league. Also, we dropped the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide for 2025-26. I'm super excited about this product. Patreon.com/ApplesGinos, and you can go to the shop there and you'll be able to get it. You have to go through a bit of a process. Patreon was not happy with me. I'm pretty convinced that it's a bug on Patreon's side, but basically there was no way to put anything behind a paywall except for a link to a Google Drive. So that's what I've done. But basically, if you go to patreon.com/ApplesGinos, if you are even just a free member on the Patreon for Apples and Ginos, then you'll have access to be able to click this link, buy the guide, and then you'll find the Google Drive link in the post at the bottom. You can click the Google Drive link, you can download the guide. So that's how to get the Fantasy Hockey Draft Guide into your hands. I'm super stoked about this product. It's even longer than last year, 167 pages of goodness. I think we were in the low 140s last year, if I remember correctly. So about an extra 25 pages for you there. More projections, more of all the stuff you've come to know and love from Apples and Ginos. I wrote a article that's 3,200 words long about how to outdraft smart opponents. I think honestly, it's probably the best article I've ever written, including the Zero G article. I think maybe the Zero G article is easier to apply for most people than this one, but I think this one just delves into topics that you're not going to see talked about anywhere else, and that's what I'm trying to supply. I'm trying to supply the absolute best, the absolute deepest information in this fantasy guide, and I think we accomplished that this year. Also, if you want to join the Patreon on a monthly basis as we get into fantasy season, I am going to be talking a lot more about the draft environment of 2025-26 that we're finding ourselves in, talking a lot more about those concepts that I touched on in that huge article inside the fantasy guide. So if you want to join, that'll be for the Apples and or Ginos tier patrons, so $8 a month or above. The $2 a month supporter tier will still get the chance to play in the APL, but above love that, you can join and get in for that patron-only podcast episode where I'm going to kind of delve into that, take some questions, give some back and forth with patron members. I think that'll be really valuable for people heading into draft season. All right, let's get back into it. Mackenzie Weegar here. I think Weegar has to fit into this profile for me. I have him projected for 12 goals, 45 points. He has a third-round price tag in most spots, at least in most sharp drafts. Peripheral floor is insane. You have to acknowledge that with Mackenzie Weegar. Potential for 200 shots, 200 hits, 200 blocks. As we've talked about, almost no other player has that kind of potential. And so that kind of peripheral floor is really hard to come by. The problem here is that you have Zane Parekh looming as a potential player to take over power play 1. And if Weegar were to lose that power play 1, it would really crater his point scoring ability. 21 of his 47 points last year came with the man advantage. If you're cutting down 21 points to like 5 or 6 power play points if he's on the second power play unit all year, you can do the math. It's not going to look pretty for Mackenzie Weegar's point paces, and nobody thinks that Calgary is an offensive juggernaut. So the power play is super, super crucial to Weegar's actual offensive output here. And again, I'm talking about it again, floor early in the top 3 rounds. I'm trying to avoid a miss. Weegar's downside is outside the top 20D, I think, if he does lose power play 1. You can argue about how likely that is, but the fact that that's even a possibility is really not that nice of a proposition to make in the third round of your drafts. Pavel Dorofeyev, I have him projected for 35 goals, 54 points. This is an advanced stat god. The advanced metrics here are just unbelievable. Like, we're talking about Matthews-like rates in some cases. The individual scoring chances are off the chain. The best case scenario here, he maintains power play 1 all year. Mitch Marner joins him on the even strength line with Thomas Hertl. He could go off for 45 goals. I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility for a player of this caliber. But the worst case scenario, the floor here is pretty rough. He could be off the power play 1 as Marner comes into town. He could have, a nice little 25, maybe 30 goal season, 45, 50 point season. And it's just not worth the pick that you're going to have to spend on Dorofeyev to get that upside swing. I think in sharp drafts, Dorofeyev is going to go in the 8th or 9th round. In casual drafts, yeah, you can probably get him without taking on too much of that risk just by virtue of where he goes in some of the more casual drafts. But in sharp drafts, you're going to have to pay up if you want to get a shot at that 45 goal nuclear season alongside Marner. And either way, it's going to be risky with Pavel Dorofeyev. Hopefully it works out. Have a ton of belief in the player. It's just, is he going to get power play 1? Is he going to get Mitch Marner on his even strength line? Dougie Hamilton next up. I'm projected for 13 goals, 51 points. Elite shot producer on the back end here. Also, the New Jersey power play is elite and pretty consistently elite. So if he is on that power play, you feel really good about what you're getting from Hamilton in terms of power play production. The big problem here is that he was really de-emphasized by Sheldon Keefe at even strength. It was one of the bigger even strength emotions we've seen for a player over the last number of years, for a player of this caliber, I guess, at least we should say. The thing is, like, best case, he skates, 21, maybe even 22 minutes, gets power play 1, he nets 60 points. That's very valuable, obviously, for a defenseman. But the worst case here is the Luke Hughes factor. Luke Hughes could take the next step this year, just absolutely go off, become one of the elite defensemen league-wide, and he takes that power play from Hamilton, takes his job, takes his even strength minutes along with it, and now all of a sudden you've taken Dougie Hamilton in the 6th round and he's getting you 40 points playing 18 minutes a night, and is really not worth the pick that you spent on him. Lastly here, Gabriel Landeskog. I have him projected for 28 goals, 59 points. Obviously, this is going to be a really tough projection to make given the fact that we only have a few playoff games worth of data on him. For what it's worth, his numbers did look really good in the playoffs. To the eye, he looked really good in the playoffs. He was hitting people, didn't seem to have any, hiccups with the injury that he's coming back from there. He could be line 1, power play 1 all year, and he could have 70-point upside if healthy. Like, that is a real possibility for Landeskog, and that's pretty exciting, especially given the banger profile here, the shot profile here. But this injury is really scary, right? He's 33 years old in November. The the possibility of him just tweaking something and him never playing hockey again is pretty scary. Or even just if they decide, like, we probably shouldn't push him too much, so we'll just play him on line 2 and power play 2, which is basically what they did in the playoffs. Over the course of the year, maybe you don't expect him to stay down the lineup like that as the captain of the team, but it's at least a possibility that you have to account for. The thing with Landeskog, he is pretty consistently going in the double-digit rounds, so taking a flyer on him there really is not going to hurt you in the long run, even if he doesn't truly pan out. The peripheral floor here is good enough, especially in bangers leagues, that he's absolutely worth that click if he is going double digits. Last order of business here, we did a Dauber giveaway, and we have the winners. We have Mark, who reached out on Twitter. We have T-Dub, who reached out on Discord. We have Phil Bluto, who reached out on Twitter. We have Wendy from the Discord. We have Ken, who reached out by email. And we have Sheldon Bouillon, who reached out by Discord. I'll be following up with each of these winners, but wanted to shout them out here and let you know that a Dauber Ultimate Fantasy Pack is on your way. Dauber Ultimate Fantasy Pack, get yourself an Apples and Ginos Fantasy Guide, and you are all set for the season. But that is going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully, Bryson Value helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. Many thanks to the band there for supplying the music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. And that's it, folks. Much love.